trip, which was yesterday. And got a couple little goodie bags from my historic Bell Witch Cave, John Bell home visit. This is a video. A couple people don't understand what the Bell Witch is outside the country. Some people inside the country, in the U.S. don't even know. Sorry, hiccups. So this I'm going to break into 3 parts, and this is the terrifying truth of the Bell Witch. Now, I'm also going to do another video, which is going to be a Mr. Ballin video about the Bell Witch. It's 28 minutes, and I think I might just do that entirely. But I think to properly start this video, we have to introduce you to the newest guest star of all the videos that will probably be shot with in this room. I want you to meet Kate Batts. Who's Kate Batts, you say? I don't know. It's just, it was there. So let's open her up. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Daddy bought himself a haunted doll. So Kate, set that over there. How are you doing? Does your head does not, oh my goodness. Look at, I'm sorry, Kate. I gotta let them look at those eyes. If she blinked, that would freak me out because she doesn't have eyelids. So, this is Kate. She's got her little dress. She's approximately 3 foot tall. She's got her little creepy legs. Whoa, didn't mean to go into the dress there. But the historic Bell Witch Cave Inc. So you have wonderful eyes if you're real. I'm not kidding you. It feels like the eyes moved. I think it's just I have the light behind me from the window. You are burning a hole through my soul. Okay. So this was a mistake. Oh no, your dress. Somebody got your dress dirty. I'll clean it. I'll clean your dress. Just don't kill me. I'm going to leave your dress on. No funny business. Okay. So in honor of my new friend Kate Batts and her little doll hands, little clinky feet, we're going to go ahead and get into part 1 of the terrifying truth of the Bell Witch. If at any time she blinks, moves, something like that, and I don't notice, please let me know and timestamp it, because I am a little creeped out. So let's get into it. Oh, I've never done this channel. What was this again? I apologize. Shiver, Paranormal Documentaries. Okay, let's get into it.
Welcome to Tennessee in the southeastern United States. Day or night, the state is home to all genres of music. From bluegrass to country, Delta blues to rock and roll. The legendary clubs along Beale Street in Memphis were among the first to feature Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. Nashville, the state capital, is also the capital of country music recording. But something that's frequently overlooked by visitors who come for the entertainment are the mountains and fertile plains of rural Tennessee. About 40 miles or 60 kilometers north of Nashville lies this quaint little town of Adams. Population 628. Visitors can expect to be treated to legendary Southern hospitality. But this peaceful setting is better known for something sinister. 200 years ago, apparitions and horrific events tormented a local family. Even today, some descendants feel they're still being shadowed by an evil spirit.
Beginning 196 years ago, Bells were tormented by what they called a spirit, the neighbors called a witch, some people called a demon.
In the legend, John Bell was poisoned by the spirit who calls herself Kate.
Many things have been seen inside the local caves. Folks believe that spirits, orbs, even ghosts sometimes can be heard talking.
So on my tour, we went to what is called the Eagle's Back. And I've got some pictures. One of these videos, I'll have a bunch of pictures up so people can see. At the Eagle's Back, that's as far as you can go in the cave safely for us. The rest of the cave hasn't been explored. So you go to this Eagle's Back, and they have everyone be quiet and just listen. And from down around the corner in the cave, I've got my eyes closed and I'm just looking down and I hear what sounds like, and it could have been the sound of the waterfall and stuff like that, just the water, but it sounded like two people. You know how you can be in a tunnel or something and you can hear people talking at the beginning of that tunnel, and it's just like, it's how it echoes. Some people instantly understand what I'm saying. It's just how it echoes off the wall and comes into you. It's almost like I can hear everything you're saying crystal clear, but it's very faint. It was like people were whispering around this corner, and I even thought I heard a little, like, I want to say a chuckle, but it wasn't. It was a laugh. It was a kind of like that, a little longer. And I immediately looked around, and no one else no one else had perked up, kind of like. So I just thought, I kind of glanced around. There was about 10 people plus the tour guide. And I look around and no one else is looking like. So I glance around and I realize, okay, I didn't hear anything. Go back down. We get done. We're in there for about 15 minutes. We're getting ready to walk away. And I said, you know, because I was where you're at in this final room. You go and you go up, and there's an area where you can stand up here, and then you can go down a little bit closer to the Eagle's Back, which is where I was, which was closer to around that corner. Now there were two other guys there. They did not acknowledge what I had heard, so that's why I believe I didn't hear it. So we crawl up, we're walking out, and I said to the tour guide, I swear I heard, it was like two women talking way down at the end of the cave, but it was like it was a very low conversation. Like they wanted to be heard, but they didn't want to be heard. I said, and then it was a little laugh, but I looked around and no one acknowledged it. So I just figured, and she goes, yeah, you heard that. And I go, oh. She said, yeah. I heard things too. You heard right. Other people probably heard the same thing, but it didn't register to them. Or they just chalked it off as they didn't really hear anything, even though they might have. She goes, yeah, but you heard it. I heard it. Everyone heard it. Whether they acknowledge it, it's up to them. And I was like, oh, so that's a little uncomfortable. And she goes, yeah. And she said, 2 weeks ago, I was in this part of the cave and I told everyone to be quiet, and it sounded like a dog on the other side of the Eagles thing. And people then started going, oh my gosh, we got to get that dog out there because there's water back there. And she goes, nothing's back there that needs to be saved. Stay over here. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's creepy. So, yeah, I had to just get into that when the guy was talking in the cave. It's a little creepy feeling.
Friends who have gone out there, they can feel the presence of the witch.
I didn't feel anything.
And when I went downstairs, I saw a ghost behind the stove.
I'm convinced something very, very bad was in that house.
And some believe it was trapped between two worlds, between the earth and the spirit world.
What it was, we really don't know.
The spirit was asked, where did you come from? Who are you and where did you come from? And he said, I am a spirit and I have been disturbed. I've been around for millions of years.
It had to be something very powerful to do what it did, but it never led on to what it actually was. They didn't understand why it was coming after our family. And when it was asked about why it was coming after the Bell family, or after John, the spirit said he just needs killing.
People in the...
Yeah, So I one of the things that I picked up was a book. And the lady told me this book, the witch was big on, obviously, talking and communicating. But she didn't like slaves. And by slaves, I mean she didn't like black people. And I think you can kind of see where this is going. She had a word that she used to love to throw around in front of them. You want to take a guess? So in that book, I opened to page 39. It was right there. I mean, it was like that word had bookmarked itself in that page. It was just like, oh, yep, there it is. All right, that's the witch. Just, yep. So, your friend was a bit racist. Back to the video. She had nothing to do with it. She's completely innocent. She's good. Oh, and some people believe that it's not necessarily a witch, as it could be a skinwalker, and other people think that it could be a jinn, in terms of what's in the cave could be a portal, and there could be jinn of all kinds of, there's good, there's bad. Some had good experiences, some had terrible experiences, some had mixed experiences, so it all depends. This is going to be a very long first video. I apologize.
People in the area continue to claim to see sightings of the Bell Witch. They claim to hear her in the middle of the night. They hear the sounds of things in the house or maybe in the woods, and they will attribute that to the Bell Witch.
But it's supposed to be an eternal spirit. And, most people look at it as some kind of witch riding around on a broom, but that's not how it's ever described by the Bells. They always describe it as a voice or an entity, and they claim they could see from time to time. It exhibited itself as either an animal or a human being. Now, the neighbors always heard the voices, but many of them said they did not see the form, that it sometimes manifested according to legend.
Well, you have your believers and you have your non-believers, and with that comes the extent of in both areas. You have some that are very hardcore. I don't believe in ghosts. I will not ever admit that there's a Bell Witch. And then you have the people who really believe that she existed and that she tormented this Bell family for years, and that she continues to torment people in Robertson County as they visit Adams.
Supposedly one of the sons of John Bell had served with Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson came back and had a confrontation with this entity.
Andrew Jackson had a pleasant encounter with it, but it abused people that he was with, and he was quoted as saying he'd rather face the whole of the British Army as to face the Bell Witch again. Well, now it showed up as...
And look, Andrew Jackson, if he wanted to, he just killed people. That was Andrew Jackson's thing. So if he'd rather face the whole of the British Army, that says something to me. Because it's not exactly you can challenge the witch to a duel.
Several different things. in the story. It was like a turkey, a wolf, a little girl in a swing that when Betsy tried to talk to her, she disappeared.
The details of these hauntings aren't for the faint of heart. For nearly 2 centuries, the Bell Witch has fascinated and puzzled followers of the paranormal. Fear is constantly being evoked by fireside storytellers, books, a play, and even a Hollywood movie.
According to history, John Bell's death was attributed to a spirit, and it's the only person I know in the history of the United States whose death was attributed to a spirit.
The legend of the Bell Witch has been passed down from generation to generation in the town of Adams, Tennessee. And it's gone viral. It has all the elements of a classic ghost story: an old haunted house, furniture moving on its own, eerie sounds, and strange voices that come from nowhere. It's more than enough to convince anyone their home is possessed.
Let me tell you a little bit about the Bell house. In 1817, according to legend, the Bells began to experience a phenomenon they called the spirit. The neighbors called it a witch, and it began to torment the family, in particular John Bell and his youngest daughter, Betsy. John Bell had a lot of health problems, and they blamed that on the spirit. He lost his shoes at times. They just literally fly off his feet, and they'd have to retrieve them. Betsy was slapped, had her covers removed at various times, had her hair tied in knots around the bedpost.
Betsy seemed to be targeted more than the other children and would have experiences
Betsy was the only daughter. He had 5 kids, only daughter.
during the night of being slapped, being pinched, her hair being torn. She would scream out in the middle of the night, and the family would see to her. When visitors would come and spend the night to see if these stories were actually true, they too would experience this.
John, at times, could not talk. It was as if he had a stick crossways of his mouth. And then he would get better. This went on for about 2 or 3 years, until finally, on the 19th of December, 1820, John Bell became extremely sick. The doctor was called, and it was determined that he had been poisoned. They were beginning to wonder who did this. Did somebody in the family poison John Bell? Did Betsy do this? Did the neighbor do this? And all of a sudden, they hear the voice that they've heard so often in the house. And the spirit, as they call it, said, "I killed old John. I fixed his medicine last night, gave him a big dose of it, and he'll never get up out of that bed." And John Bell died.
I've come to the conclusion that something definitely did happen. I've seen a letter, a handwritten letter from 1820, the year John died, of 2 boys riding home to their mother on their trip to see the angel at the Bell house. And they were able to get to the house, and the first night they said nothing happened, and the second night it happened, and said, "Mom, it's not an angel, it's the devil."
And this is part of the legend that continues on through the years. The Bell family is still here in Robertson County, and it has a bloodline that exists till to today. And because of that, the story just keeps getting passed generation to generation and is kept alive.
Bob Bell is one of those descendants. He has no doubts his family's stories are true. Like his 5th great-grandfather, John, Bob has also been a target inside his own home.
I had just gotten ready to get in the bed, and everything was really quiet then. And then I heard at the end of that hall, the double doors slam shut, both doors. And one of them latches, so they had to be unlatched, and they had to slam them shut. And there was footsteps came down the hall and stopped at my door, and the hair on my neck stood up. And me not being superstitious, I thought somebody was in the house. You know, I thought we had an intruder, and I was truly scared. That's probably the most scared I've ever been. So I went downstairs, I went to our gun cabinet and found a .45. I loaded it, put a round in the chamber, and I had it cocked. I was gonna shoot somebody. And I went room to room, SWAT team style, and it took me about a half hour to go through the whole house because there's 2 sets of stairs. And I went back and forwards and looked everywhere in that house. There was nobody there. And I slept with the door locked, pistol by the bed, and my light on.
Many people believe the Bell Witch that stalked John Bell and his family isn't just an old legend. It's still around. Other people in Adams and Robertson County also have had close encounters with the spirit.
That's not the cave.
Most happen inside a network of caves, once used for cold storage by farmers in the region. These dark, out-of-the-way caves can be dangerous places, but are perfect locations for paranormal activity. Cave explorers and casual visitors are warned not to enter unprepared. The most popular cave in the area is the one on the old Bell family farm. Most visitors who go there won't cross paths with the Bell Witch or any other spirit, but they could end up even worse off, cornering a wild animal in its lair.
Many of our local ghost stories have begun in caves. Voices, orbs, just about anything you can name have been supposedly heard. And a few years ago, in the last 15 or 20 years, somebody captured a picture outside the mouth of a cave here, and it looked to be a woman dressed in a white dress. It showed up in the film, but it wasn't in the picture when they took it. Betsy Bell and the Bell children often played in the cave that was on their farm. They claimed at times to have had something chasing them. And so the story of a giant fish just below the cave that stirred up the water and caused the Bell children to be greatly alarmed. On a trip from the river and from the cave one day, Betsy saw a little girl hanging from the tree, and she talked to Betsy and told her that she shouldn't marry her boyfriend, Joshua Gardner. So caves are so important to the legend and the story of the Bell Witch in Robeson County.
I was teaching a local history class for Volunteer State Community College. And the guy that owned the cave, he asked me if I had ever been to the cave, which I had not. And so we go down to the cave, and we go about 250 feet back, and I got up on this ledge with this gentleman to see some Indian drawings or whatever, and the lights go out. And this is 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I have 10 or 11 history students in there. And so we grope ourselves back out of the cave, and we get to the entrance of the cave. The lights come back on. Now, my son, who was, let's say, 79, so say about 6 or 7 years old, I wouldn't let him go. So I made him stay with the lady upstairs. So I assumed that she had done something with the lights. He said she didn't move.
Pioneer and farmer John Bell is buried.
This cemetery is still owned by the Bell family, and so I wanted to go to it, but it's off limits, so I didn't want to be disrespectful, so I just didn't go.
Buried here in the Bellwood Cemetery, along with many of his descendants. The place is popular with tourists who come to find out more about the family tormented over nearly 2 centuries by the Bell Witch. But John Bell's tombstone seen here isn't original. Following an old custom at the time of his death, he would have been buried in the forest. Eventually, many...
You see, it looks like it's not off limits, but the lady there told me
Do
it
you
was.
love getting high, but...
So I did not go there. But there's a road there, so I probably could have. I don't know.
Eventually, many of those early grave sites disappeared.
I was going to try to document where people lived at the time because so much of it is destroyed. Was trying to find one person, the grave. His name was Frank Miles, and in the story he plays a part as being a neighbor, and he and John Bell Jr. were close personal friends. I walked the countryside trying to find the gravesite. Couldn't do it. One morning about 3 o'clock, it was in July, I woke up, I'd had a dream. And I dreamed about a small grove of trees. And I couldn't get that away from my mind. I kept going right back to it. And about the middle of the morning, I thought, I know where that is. So I went in this place, and it's grown over with poison ivy and honeysuckle. So I cut all the vegetation away and scraped the dirt off of it, and I had on a glove, and so I rubbed it off, and it said Frank R. Miles.
This cemetery right here, this is the graveyard that's off limits.
I gently put it back down, covered it back over, and left. I thought, this is not normal. At that point, I thought, you know, some things are better left alone, so just leave it alone. So I stopped my pursuit of locating where anyone else was buried.
I was coming home one night, and me and my kids, and there was this, I don't know what it was. I can't tell you. It wasn't a cat, it wasn't a panther, it wasn't a dog. But I was driving, and this animal come toward my car, and it was pure black and had red eyes. That's all I can tell you. Don't know what it was. I'd never seen anything like it before. And it just kind of come toward me and then darted off, and I never saw nothing of it.
Our phone rang, and it was my grandmother, who was really distraught, and she talked to my father, and she wanted him to come down as soon as possible. We went into the house, and I remember grandmother still holding the phone and seeing how scared she was. She said, well, I was upstairs taking a nap, and I heard this crash, this loud noise, and I came downstairs and then came into the kitchen, and I looked on the floor, and all my china was on the kitchen floor. Well, the odd part about it was there was a butler's pantry between the kitchen and the dining room that had the china cabinet built into the wall with latching doors. And the doors came open, and all the china, every single piece, came out and crashed on the floor, not in the butler's pantry, but in the kitchen. And I just remember seeing it spread just evenly, like it was just thrown out on the floor. And not one piece was broken, and it was bone china. So it was, I have no explanation of how that happened or why it happened, but it was still unexplained by anybody today.
We're gonna go ahead and end it there for part 1. Part 2, I will, I got some pictures. It's some pictures of the cave, not a whole lot. You couldn't really take pictures inside, so I couldn't get that. But I do have some old pictures that I purchased. And then the third video, I'll show some of the pictures that I took. Not a whole lot. But me and Kate want to wish you, her arm doesn't move too much. I was holding her hand and just praying that she wasn't going to squeeze my finger. She didn't. And if the bell was moving, that's because my legs were moving. So we got to end this here. Tell them to like and subscribe. Look into their eyes. Like and subscribe. She's awesome. Okay. Thanks for, I almost forgot how to end these things. Until next time, until part 2, have a good day, have a good night.